So since the Delver's Journey Renown track has been unlocked in Midnight, I have been grinding and grinding and grinding to get rank 10 to be able to test out all of the different ranks, because some of these ranks have some pretty massive introductions into the system that could potentially just be giving you pretty substantial gear farms for even any of your ults. Now, the main thing I want to go over in this video is how to most efficiently farm up your Renown ranks to get your Delver's Journey up to rank 10, or even more specifically up to rank 9, because rank 10 isn't actually that important, but to be able to get all of the ranks you need to get the most out of your delves. I did also want to go over what you get at all of the different ranks and what they actually do, because there is some pretty big changes coming from the War Within and going into Midnight. There will also be timestamps so you can skip wherever you want. If you already know what all of the ranks do and you just want to know how to more efficiently farm the reputation for this, you can just skip to whatever point you want. Now, taking a look at the rewards from all of these Delver ranks, a few of them aren't super important, so I'm just going to go over the ones that you probably want to know about. So at rank 2, a Gilded Sash now appears after completing a tier 11 delve. Now, just at rank 2, these will give hero crests, and I'm pretty sure the hero crests from these delves are uncapped, and you actually get a lot of these. In fact, for pretty much all crests below myth, I think this has ended up being one of the best crest farms in the game. So even if you're somebody that isn't necessarily looking for the loot from the delves, just farming these delves to get all the crests may actually be quite worthwhile. Then at rank 3, a Sanctified banner can now manifest in a bountiful delve. This will just be a banner you can go click on, and it will either just disappear or spawn an elite, and I'm pretty sure it will always give you some buff within the delve as well. And I think the main one it gives you is that you can just summon these light bound allies to help you within the delve, but the primary thing they do is they give you an additional chest at the end of the delve. And I think it still give you warbound gear, because I think all of the chests at the end of the delve can give you warbound gear, and then outside of that, it's primarily the different resources and currencies, so it'll give you things like undercoins and the other random materials and things you can get out of chests. Then at rank 4, Gilded Sashes now also grant myth crest. So doing a tier 11 delve and looting that Gilded Sash at the end will now also give myth crest on top of the hero crest, but myth crests are capped to only 20 per week per character, so you can get 20% of your weekly cap of myth crests from delves. But again, I don't think there's any cap on getting any other crest out of these. Then at rank 5, you have one of the biggest additions to the delve system. Now Zaran, a vendor, will now appear at the end of tier 6 delves and above with a random stock of equipment. Now, what I was very surprised at is he has any items you can get from delves that are pretty much randomly rolled to everyone you do. When he was introduced in the War Within, he only had trinkets, and those trinkets were the same for that week. But going into Midnight, he has any piece of gear you can get from delves, so any armor pieces, weapons, trinkets, necklaces, rings, anything you can get out of a delve, any piece of gear you can get from Zaran, but it will be randomly rolled. And I don't think there's any limit to this. Like, I don't think there's any specific amount of items that only appear this week or next week. I'm pretty sure it's legitimately just any item that can be in a delve can be on this vendor. And if you wanted to, you could just keep running, say, tier 6 delves to keep refreshing the vendor to try to get what you want. Now, rank 5, you will only have champion track gear, and these will cost undercoins. And I think it's 2,000 undercoins up to like 4,000. And 4,000 would be some of the more main armor pieces and things like two-handed weapons. I think trinkets are also in the most expensive tier as well. So if you farm up a ridiculous amount of undercoins, you could realistically just take an alt into tier 6 delves that's really undergeared, run tier 6 delves that aren't that difficult, and just keep refreshing the vendor every run and using up all of your undercoins to buy a bunch of champion track gear for that character. Also, undercoins are freely tradable, and there's no like cost to trading them, and they are infinitely farmable if you know what to do, which we'll also go over in this video. And then we have rank 6, where you can now purchase 2 restored coffer keys from one of the NPCs at the delve area. Now, this is 2 keys per character per week, and these are 2,000 undercoins per key. So they are quite expensive, but you may also be thinking, why would I go and buy these restored coffer keys that will just give you champion track gear at the end of a bountiful delve when I could just keep those undercoins and go run tier 6 delves to refresh the vendor to buy the items I want for undercoins? And while some of the items would be more expensive expensive, that does actually make a lot of sense until you get to rank 9, and that's really where these restored coffer keys become much more valuable. So if you're somebody that's going to continue doing a lot of delves to gear up characters, and you may not be able to farm enough to get rank 9 right away, I would recommend buying these restored coffer keys on as many characters as you can get them on. Then at rank 7, you can buy a toy that just summons the vendor that will sell you the restored coffer keys. So if you forget, you can just use this toy in a delve. It only has an hour cooldown, and you can buy your restored coffer keys while in the delve. At rank 8, this is another big one. Champion Warbound gear can now be obtained from tier 9 delves and above. So doing, I think, tier 8 delves and above, you can randomly just get veteran track Warbound gear. So that's epic gear on the veteran track, decent starting gear, and you can actually get them quite consistently, especially if you're farming delves you could do pretty quickly. But now if you're doing tier 9 and above, those can randomly be champion track gear as well. I don't know the chances. It seems to be 50-50 if the Warbound gear will be champion or veteran. So it's just a pretty massive upgrade, because you could also be running this on, say, your main or something and still get a champion track Warbound piece of gear that could be an upgrade for you as well. But this is just more champion track gear, and you can also infinitely farm this, because every chest you get at the end of a delve, no matter if it's bountiful or not, should be able to be dropping these Warbound pieces of gear, which can now just have a chance to be champion track. But at rank 9 is where you will start to get the crazier gear. So tier 11 bountiful coffers now have a chance to provide either a piece of hero gear or untainted mana crystals used to purchase powerful equipment from Zaron. Tier 8, 9, and 10 bountiful coffers also reward smaller quantities of these crystals. Now, once you're up to this point, I would pretty much always recommend running tier 11 bountiful delves. If you have an alt character that you can't do the tier 11 on yet, I would generally just recommend go gear up through other stuff until you're at a good enough place to be able to do the tier 11 delves. Because now using your coffer keys on that tier 11 bountiful chest at the end can now just randomly give you a hero track piece of gear instead of champion track. Usually you can only get that from the Great Vault if you're only doing delves. Now you can just get it out of the runs, but if you don't get it, you will get 45 of the untainted mana crystals. This is specifically from a tier 11, and I think you could obtain 250 of these mana crystals per week. Now what this rank doesn't say it does is it adds hero track gear to Zaron, the vendor you can get at tier 6 delves and above, and those also seem to be completely randomly rolled between any item you can get out of a delve. So now if you go in, complete a delve at tier 6 or above, and go check at Zaron, he will now still have the same like randomly rolled gear he can normally have, but any item that he has in his stock will now also have a hero track version for some amount of untainted mana crystals. And I think these go 100 up to 200 if I'm not mistaken. So things like wrists, or I think stuff like gloves and belts, I think would be 100. I think things like shoulders and chest pieces maybe the 150, and then I think it's like weapons and trinkets that are 200. So as you're just doing your normal farming out of the delve, you'll just be getting more hero track gear, but if you're not getting hero track gear, you will also just be building up this currency that allows you to go and buy hero track gear from the vendor. Now these untainted mana crystals are weekly capped per character, so you can go and farm this currency on every single one of your characters. You can also only hold 1,000, but right now the cap is like 250 per week, so you have to spend like a month of farming and not spending any of these to not be able to get more. So this will just be a massive infusion of obtaining hero track gear, and if there's any really good items out of delves that you may want, maybe there's a trinket that's really good for your spec or something like that, you can definitely go and just farm tier 6 delves after you're at this point to refresh Zaron if you have the mana crystals, to just farm until you get that item. And for a lot of specs, I think one of the best things would be to farm up enough of these mana crystals to get the 200 to then buy a hero track weapon from Zaron. That would probably be one of the first upgrades if you're someone that uses a 200 weapon. My presumption is that one-handers and shields or offhands and things like that are probably going to be 100, but I'm not 100% certain on that. So those are the main rewards you're getting from going through the Delver's journey and getting it up to rank 9, where you can now just get a ridiculous amount of increased gear and just higher track gear just from doing the delves themselves. But if you're not at this point, how do you go about farming the reputation for the Delver's Journey Renown track as quickly or efficiently as possible? And just as a small TLDR, doing tier 11 bountiful delves and using your keys on the chest at the end will give you the most amount of reputation you can get as quickly as you can get it. And having more and more characters will allow you to do this much more quickly. Like me personally, I have 5 level 90s right now, and I have been doing tier 11 bountiful delves on all 5 of them to get this to rank 10 much more quickly. Now you can infinitely farm reputation, and we will go over that, but the fastest and most efficient way is to just run more tier 11 bountiful delves, use all the keys you can, and just hop on another level 90 ult and rinse and repeat doing that. That will give you the most amount of reputation, and specifically on a tier 11 bountiful delve, you will get 250 rep from the completion of that delve. You will get 125 reputation from the maxed out Nemesis chest. So in tier 11 delves, there will be 4 Nemesis groups. Now, I'm not actually sure if not getting all of the groups gives less reputation. I'm pretty sure it does, but in general, you also want to be maxing out that chest, because maxing out that chest can just give you more resources. It gives you more undercoins, and I think it also has a higher chance to give you gear out of it. And then you will also be getting 300 reputation using your coffer keys on the bountiful chest at the end. So that's a total of 700 per tier 11 bountiful run, which is a good amount of reputation. It's 4,200 rep per rank. So it's 42,000 rep in total to get the rank 10. So if you were only doing tier 11 bountiful runs all with keys, that would be 60 total runs, but you can get good chunks of additional rep from other things. And that brings me to the things you can only do weekly. So first off, that is a one-time per account weekly item that will give you 1,500 rep. So you go and complete delves, and out of the chest, you could just get this item that is a quest turn-in at the Delver's area. This will give you, I think, a bunch of undercoins and 1,500 rep. Again, that's once per account per week. So you can't go do this on a bunch of other characters. That's a good chunk of rep once every week. And then the hidden trove maps that you can get on every character once per week give an additional 300 rep for that chest. And if you don't know how these work, they work in the exact same way as maps from the War Within, where you can randomly get these maps out of chests at the end of delves. If the Nemesis boss randomly invades your delve and you defeat him and loot his chest after defeating him, that will always give you a map on that character. And then you also have the item that can force that boss to spawn into the delve. You can either buy that for 5,000 undercoins at the vendor, which I don't think is really worthwhile. The best thing to do is to go pick up the quest from Asalor to do 3 Nightmare Prays, and that will actually give you one of the items that force spawns the boss in that delve. And you can actually do that Nightmare Pray quest on every character. Now, you don't necessarily need to do this because you will just pretty commonly get the map at the end of the delves pretty quickly, and you also just have the random chance for the Nemesis boss to spawn in anyway. But if you're trying to be most efficient, it may be best to just go do the 3 Nemesis runs on all of the characters that want to do delves that week, because then you get the item and could just go instantly use it, so you don't have to worry about getting it. And after you get the map, you have to use it, and then at the end of the delve, it will spawn another chest that, if you're doing tier 11 delves, will also give you a hero track piece of gear, but opening that chest will give you another 300 rep. And again, you can do that on every single one of your characters once per week. So that is another pretty massive infusion of reputation, but these are the main things you're going to want to be doing to get the most amount of rep as efficiently as possible. Now, if you don't have a lot of level 90 characters and you just want to keep farming lower amounts of reputation, you can actually infinitely farm specific delves to get reputation. Now, I don't think this is said anywhere in game, but if you continuously farm the bountiful delve for that day, it will continue to give you reputation every time you complete it. It seems to be 125 on a tier 11 delve. So every single additional run past your first run of that bountiful delve will just keep giving you 125 rep. So if you specifically find a very fast delve, you could farm a lot of rep pretty quickly. Also, this is how you infinitely farm undercoins, because if you just go do any random delve, no matter what tier it's on, it won't give you reputation or undercoins. But if you just keep running the delve that's bountiful for that week, you will continue to get undercoins and reputation. Even after your first time doing the bountiful delve, you can infinitely farm it for that day, and then whatever other delve it cycles to the next day, you just have to keep farming in a bountiful delve. So that's how you get infinite undercoins and infinite reputation if you want to do that. So that's all of the most important rewards and additions you will get from the Delver's Journey reputation track. This is the best ways to go about farming that reputation or renown, and I would definitely recommend doing this earlier than later if you're somebody that's going to be continuously running a lot of delves, especially if you're doing it on a lot of different characters, because getting up to that rank 9 will just massively increase the amount of hero track gear you can get from delves. Instead of only getting champion track from your bountiful delves, you can now always have a chance at hero track gear. And again, if you're not getting the hero track gear, you'll be getting the new mana crystal currency, which will just allow you to then buy hero track gear after getting enough of it. If you get to rank 9 pretty quickly, and then you get new characters to level 90 or want to start gearing up level 90 characters, you can just start doing those tier 11 delves pretty early on, because if you have Lyra at level 60, which you'll get her to level 60 doing farms like this pretty quickly, you will pretty much always be able to do tier 11 delves, even if it takes a while. And this is definitely going to be one of the fastest ways to gear up characters in the game in its entirety. Because even doing something like Mythic Plus spam, you can do like a dozen dungeons and not get a piece of gear. But if you're doing your bountiful delves every week, you're always going to come out with a handful of hero track gear and a bunch of currency to buy even more hero track gear. And then on top of that, you're going to be getting a ridiculous amount of champion track gear, a good chunk of which will be warbound gear. So I would definitely recommend farming up this reputation, get up to at least rank 9, and then you are set to gear up all of your characters pretty quickly. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.